away in the opening rack. Alongside me is US Mosconi Cup captain Jeremy Jones.
Yeah, Michael, it should be a pretty competitive opening round here for Chris Melling and Petr Urban. Great break off there for Chris, and so the first two strikes of the cue ball for Chris, nearly a perfect lag, which will be very important as this tournament moves along. Winner break format.
Not seen a huge amount of Chris Melling in recent times. Did play at the World Championship, didn't make a great impact on it. He's been focusing a lot recently on 8-ball, which he's perhaps better known for these days, and getting some good results there.
Yeah, well, all I've heard from a lot of the UK players is how awesome it is to have such a big event here not far from home.
Yeah, and a lot of the less familiar British players wouldn't be known to the wider public outside of pool insiders featuring in the field, and be interesting to see if some of them can come through and make a name for themselves.
Well, it's all about building momentum early and kind of getting a little settled. Same thing for Chris. I think that's a big thing for Chris. You can see sometimes we've seen when he has played some big events in the past few years, maybe got a little bit stressed.
Yeah, we definitely saw that at the World Championship. He did feature on the main table, but just couldn't settle at all.
A tough shot here, even without the crutch. Table's playing fairly generous so far. That's to be expected. That was hit perfectly.
And he's played this rack perfectly. Perfect way to stamp your authority is to break and run in the opening rack. And that's exactly what Chris Melling has done. He leads Petr Urban by 1-0. You've been on this side of the Atlantic for a few weeks now, Jeremy. You were at the World Masters in Gibraltar, and you've had a week in Switzerland in between.
Yeah, that was awesome.
What brought you there?
I got to do a little coaching with a man there, actually one of the few one-pocket players in Europe, and what a host he was. And then a little bit of a holiday. My wife flew over, my sister flew over, and we just had a great time. I didn't see the point once I got the chance to go to Switzerland. Texas is awesome, but they don't have the Alps. Koping Chung just started his match against Dominic Clemens. Saw his brother advance in the first round. Yeah,
that was on the main table a little earlier. Clemens, one of those players who, again, as I say, to the wider public might not be a familiar British name. They have a chance to make a name for themselves this week. Double elimination format, of course.
And you'll see with, most of the players and the ones you don't know, but especially the English, they're going to be guys that knock the balls in very well. He's lost the cue ball, it looks like right there, but back to Chris Melling breaking in game 2. And I think Chris is, one of the guys that can definitely use a little early momentum to try and make a deep run here in the UK Open. There's certain players you just kind of know they're going to play better and better as the matches go, and this is an awkward shot, a bit thin to try and play the cross side bank and hold position. Maybe he runs into the pink. Now he's looking at possibly the safety. Yeah, this is a little touchy, a little less angle, a little more angle. The safety's easy, the bank's playable. I think I like what he's looking at now. Just kind of cutting the 3-ball down to the bottom cushion, bringing the cue ball back up table. This is just speed control. If you get the snooker, it's great. If not, definitely wanted a little more out of it than that.
4 balls down off the break, but no opportunity to take things further. And we get our first look at Petr Urban, 31 years of age, from the Czech Republic. Represented them in the World Cup last year and will do so again next month.
I'm assuming him and Roman Heibler, maybe?
That is the team, yes.
Saw Roman earlier. He plays I think what will be a quality match in the first round against another English player. I'm trying to remember his last name. Woolworth? Somebody I was told was a very good cueist.
Someone who definitely falls into that category is Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, a player who's been having good results over the last 6 or 7 months. He's in action at the moment against Jason Thron of South Africa, and he leads 2-1, so that's one to keep an eye on.
And Chris, we all know, can come with all kinds of creative shots, and he'll have to come with one here. Possibly has an edge on the red 3 ball. Other than that, he'll come to the back rail with a lot of spin. I don't see any tip on the right side, so he must have a little edge on the 3. You got behind that, Michael.
Another big name in action at the moment, Ralf Suke, the experienced, to put it mildly, German. 6-5 down, though, against Dutchman Tim Jonkman. Winner of that plays Pranit Ramchandani, who got through a little earlier. 9-6 win for him against Andrew Morris.
And I think Petr's first offensive play here on the 3. And there you go. I wouldn't miss by much, but a little bit of the heavy speed had that ball bobble. You'll notice on the diamond table, very deep slate into the pocket.
Yeah, and he doesn't look like he's settled into the match yet. Granted, we've only seen him play a couple of shots, but I think he needs something a bit easier than that to get him started here.
Well, getting started is so important. We can see how the tables broke so far. I think 7 balls made in the first 2 opening breaks.
And this is exactly what Melling wanted. He's up against a good opponent, but one who wouldn't be greatly experienced of playing on the main table like this. Melling just wants to keep him in his seat as much as possible. Don't let him get settled too early. And that's exactly what's happening at the moment. 2-0. Urban has not potted a ball yet. Thomas Kaplan, one of the ever-improving Polish contingent on the scene. A real battle with Sander Kont of Estonia, 6-all in that one at the moment. Who'd you fancy this week, Jeremy? Shane Van Bonen maybe to back up his World Championship success?
Well, I like his approach, which is a pretty common theme with Shane, but he didn't go back to America. He went on to Bucharest to play the event, which I thought was a very smart move. So out of the American players, without it being an obvious choice, I like what he's done preparing for this UK Open. But there's, like I said, a good handful of Americans, so expect a few of them to make a deep run. He spoke of Ralf Suke, and a man who has every title in the world pretty much, at least in many disciplines, and probably wants to get on the board in this UK Open as quick as he can.
Ko Ping Chung is getting on the board on the other table, taking the opener against Dominic Clements. I say the other table, that's the other one of the main tables that we're keeping an eye on.
And Ralph, getting back to Ralph, I think the 4.5-inch pockets versus the 4.25, or excuse me, the 4.25-inch pockets versus the 4-inch, I think sets up very well for Ralph. So if he can get through this first match, I know it's a tight one, but I wouldn't doubt he makes a run.
When you say it sets up well for him, why so particularly for Ralph?
Well, I think there is just an occasional miss. And in Ralph's game. You know, as you get older, it's just something that does happen. He still prepares and trains as hard as anyone, but it's just you know, I think it'll show up in a week's time if we were on the 4-inch pockets. Now, interesting shot here. Does he take this on? I know he likes the cut shot in the corner between the 7 and 8, but he could play a pretty locked safety here. You got to figure him to be a pretty big favorite. And the main reason of this shot's so good is the 4's over the pocket. So if he gets a decent shot on the 3, position's not that difficult. He's overcut it. Oh no, he made it. He's overran it though, and that's what happens when you overcut it to the pocket a little bit. A little more cue ball travel. Difficult kick shot here. I don't know if he can get by the 7. He can certainly kick to the right side rail if you're looking at your screen. Maybe get a little movement on the 9.
And Chris just pointing out to John Lehman that the racking device needed to be removed.
He's measuring up the jump shot, trying to see the cueing and how close he is to the 7. I think the kick shot here, you know, with Petr not really pocketing a ball yet, and hard to really figure a safety, of course, but the kick shot, you figure him to hit it. So you do have to play with a little fortune, but at least make his opponent earn it when he gets to the table. And I thought he missed this ball. You could see it really hit the wide side of the pocket, cost him a little cue ball. I like this way myself. I think you can get more speed. This kick shot across, it looks like you have to hit it a bit lighter with spin. Maybe nobody in the room comes with more amazing than Chris Melling. Beautiful shot there, and this is exactly what I was talking about. Make the young man from the Czech Republic earn it to get on the board.
Well, it must be very frustrating for him so far. Hasn't really had a clear-cut opportunity yet.
Yeah, this is difficult as well because of the 4 hanging over the side. He could run the cue ball around behind the 7-8, but if he leaves any window at all, easy position. The 4's over on the side rail, you can have, you know, you're not so worried about the long shot if you do leave a gap between the 7 and the 8. This looks like it's going to be pretty good. A nice speed. Rail first before the side pocket by the 8 ball, maybe. I think it's a makeable shot. Ko Ping Chung out to a 2-0 lead on table number 2.
Yeah, against British player Dominic Clemens.
I fancy Chris to have threatened this in that corner pocket. It looks like it lays very nice to hit on the right side rail. Yeah, I liked his chances.
Yeah, and playing it the way he was highly likely to be on a straightforward 4 to follow, and now pretty big favorite for 3-0.
Yeah.
Bit of work to do here, though.
Yeah, he's got to screw the cue ball over a little bit, but that's why the 4 over the side made such a huge difference on that safety, is because anything possible, you know, pocketable 3 ball, even the rail first, and what nice control from Chris. You know, if the 4 is away somewhere, it makes things a lot more difficult. That's an interesting shot. He could have laid up for that corner pocket. Now he's got to work the cue ball a little bit. Looks like speed on this is pretty ideal.
Yeah, he's got the pace of the table very nicely, very early on. And Chris Melling, totally dominant. Urban just can't get a foothold here. Chris Melling off and running, 3-0 in this race to 9 in the first round of the UK Open. And another result for you, Dutchman Jan van Lierop, a 9-4 winner over Daniel Corriere of Italy. Van Lierop will now play Jamie Mocock of Britain in the next round. Chris Melling, 43 years of age now. Feels like he's been around forever. He's been World 8-Ball champion a couple of times. But once he started getting seriously into 9-Ball, he was winning big tournaments quite quickly. Over a decade now since he made a big breakthrough by winning the China Open. He's played in a couple of Mosconi Cups and been on the winning side both times. A great singles record. In fact, won all of his singles matches in both of those tournaments. And has been a professional snooker player. Was ranked as high as 79 in the world, which is a very high standard to reach. And he set a pretty high standard early on here, leading 3-0 and breaking.
Yeah, and they're pouring in so far. He's got a shot on the 1. A little bit of funny cueing, I think, next to the 7. We'll see. But the 7 offers a pretty big pocket for the side, so he's got options on the 2. And when the guys see the corner ball going in and they're using the template here early in the tournament, it's all about the speed to keep position on the 1. This has gotten much more difficult than we expected. Anytime you're behind the ball, Michael, it's just not as comfortable a feeling pocketing the 2 up in the corner. He's got a dig on the cue ball as well.
That's all coming pretty easily to him at the moment. We talked earlier about how perhaps when he's played in big 9-Ball events in recent times, he's found it difficult to settle into them. Well, I guess it helps when you're going in against an opponent who doesn't have a great degree of experience in this sort of environment. And that's basically been the story of it so far. Looks like it's going to be his second break and run of the match, and if it is, then Melling will in no time at all be almost halfway to victory.
Yeah, it's got to make a bit of a shot on the 9. Should wrap the cue ball out of this lower left corner.
There really is one-way traffic for the Yorkshireman at the moment. Chris Melling leads Petr Urban of the Czech Republic by 4 racks to 0. Thomas Kaplan of Poland, I told you he was in a real tussle with Sander Kont of Estonia. Well, he pulled away at the end and got through by 9 racks to 7. So he's through to the second round. Remember, the entire first round will be played today. If you get through, you then don't play again until tomorrow. But those who lose go into the first round of the loser's side, half of which will actually be played this evening. So we will have some players out of the tournament altogether by tonight. Kaplan's win, incidentally, takes him through to play Jamil Jacobs of South Africa, who beat Britain's Alec Cameron 9-3.
Yeah, with this many players, unfortunate to lose some players on day 1, but that's just how it has to be.
Urban looks to be heading for that loser's side at the moment, but still time to turn it round. 4-0 down, though.
And Chris put a little more into that rack, caught the one on the far side, which is not what you want to do. Leads towards a scratch a lot of times. And it looks like a push out here, maybe?
Yeah, it looked like he was going to be in nice position, but then the 6 just kept on rolling and blocked it.
Anytime you have to push out, you love seeing that little congestion with the 2 and the 4. Gives you a little more comfort on the push out. May even kick at this 1 ball. Chris, very handy with the kick shot, the rail first. We saw a nice kick on the 3 earlier. And then a rail first pocketing also that same 3 ball. I don't mind the kick shot here if he feels like he can move the 1 between the 2 and 7. Looks like it lays pretty nice to do so. And a lot of these British players that you may not know their names, I think he is going to take on this kick shot. Should just try to stop the cue ball, kind of moving the one-up table mildly. He caught the 2 and the 4. He didn't want to do that, but it may work out. But what I was going to get at is convenient and great it is to play just right here at home. There's a lot of pressure because who knows when the next big one's going to be. I know Matchroom's going to bring more and more, but these guys want to advance.
I think for some of the lesser known names who have entered the event, as much as anything, it's about finding out where they are and where their game is at and how they compare.
I don't know if he has an entire one ball. He may be swerving this, a touch, or jumping it a touch. Yep. Great camera view there. So it's going to catch the 6 and contain Chris, I believe. Probably puts the cue ball behind the 7 and the 1 just above the 6 and the 2.
I mentioned that Urban will be playing in the World Cup of Pool in Essex next month. Well, Melling will be there as well. He'll be on the Great Britain B team with Imran Majid.
Touchy little shot here. Beauty.
And all just adding to Urban's frustration every time he comes to the table. Feels as though he's got a conundrum to deal with. Not being handed anything easy to get a foothold, and that's exactly the way Melling wants it.
Yeah, and here on what's the main table, I think the conditions of the table are going to be new to a lot of these guys as well. Very slick. Not something they're going to play a lot of in the GB9 or some of the Euro Tours even. And that's one of the telltale signs, is missing a lot of kick shots. He's all set up well with ball in hand. 2 goes, I believe, by the 6. No problem.
Yeah, and while he sets himself up for that, I can tell you Juan Carlos Exposito of Spain, there's a name you won't forget. Well, he's on the hill now, 8-5 against Kevin Lanoy of Belgium. Winner of that plays Dimitrios Loukatos.
Beautiful area here in the Copper Box. Not only the venue, of course, but just the entire area here in Stratford.
Yeah, this was a venue for the Olympics 10 years ago, as I'm sure you know, and we're right next door to West Ham United football stadium, which was, of course, the main venue for the Olympic Games until it was converted into a home for Premier League football.
Yeah, we have some early summer weather here. Nice and warm outside.
It came at the right time, Jeremy. This is England. Might not see it again for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, I often loved going to Cardiff for the World Pool Championships. It was always in July. It was just ideal.
And speaking of ideal, that's a good word to describe the start that Chris Melling has made to this match. He's completely dominant here and now leads 5-0. Only 4 more racks needed already.
And he can't wait for John Lehman to rack the balls, it seems.
Well, that's it, isn't it? When things are going your way, you just become so addicted to it, and you just can't wait to get the chance to build on your lead and keep it going. And the way this is heading, Melling could be through to the next round, hardly feeling like he's had to put in any effort at all. With the rest of the day off, come back tomorrow.
Omar Al-Shaheen of Kuwait is in a match as well. Couldn't make the World Pool Masters. Had a little problem with his visa. So very happy, I'm sure, to be back in action.
And runner-up in the World Championship last year.
And he has to appreciate getting to sweat his countrymen. Abdullah excuse me.
It's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah, Al Yusuf.
Yeah.
But what a run he's been making in the Nineball rankings. Semi-finalist in the World Pool Championships and again in the World Pool Masters.
And we have our first dry break of the match.
And by far the best look offensively for Petr. Still a difficult shot with the cue ball resting on the rail, and he's got to move the cue ball forward a little bit.
I'm going to tell you, this is probably the best chance he's had so far. That gives you quite an indication of how this match has been going. Even this, as you say, not routine. Just potting that one ball, Jeremy, is going to make him feel so much better.
And this hasn't gotten any easier. He's a little thin on the 2. He's got to get into the 7 to hold the cue ball. And then most likely he gets a little thin on the 3 as well. If he hits that right side of the 7, he's going to lose the cue ball to the right a bit. Going towards the purple 5. Oh, he went ahead and played that. Now he's got to hope he gets away with a shot. I think he's a little snookered. Maybe has half the 3, maybe has all of it. Yeah, you can see he's elevating the cue, sizing up the jump shot. And the problem with the jump shot, very hard to go forward with the cue ball a lot of times. Maybe a swerve here. Probably the most nervy shot when you first pull it out the first time. You tend to overhit it a little bit, the jump shot, trying to make sure you get over the ball. He's hit it solid. He's going to give a shot up to Chris, but not much of an offensive shot unless a paper-thin cut in the side. This is where Chris really excels when he's playing well, the situational pool.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just, you know, these aren't things you're going to practice. How do I play safe from here? What does it offer? You know, maybe a snooker experience, a bit of that English 8-ball really comes into play. We saw it early with a couple kick shots that were super nice. I'm not sure how much of the 3 has, though. If he can knock the 3 around by the, looks like he's going for the cut. Well, that's a beautiful sign for Chris Melling.
Yeah, he had the angle to play that shot to come back round the table for the 4, but had to judge the pace nicely. And he couldn't have done it much better.
Yeah, and anytime you're thin, you always feel like you want to put more speed, making the cut a little easier. The contact on the object ball, and that's a pretty settled Chris Melling that kind of eased that 3 ball in.
The prospect of going down 9-0 here must be entering Urban's head. Wouldn't be normal for it not to have got into his thoughts somewhere. Well, that fate has befallen Alan Brown of Scotland. He's been beaten 9-0 by Marius Skonechny, who could now play Naoki Oi in the next round. Oi plays Adam Humphreys.
And this looks like it's going to stay in the same pattern we've opened this match with, and Chris Melling should get to 6 games here shortly. Looks like he's settled the pace just a hair or two. It's never going to be slow with Chris, obviously, but
well, Petr Urban finally managed to pot a ball in this rack, but Chris Melling has still ended up producing the same outcome. 6-0 he now leads the man from the Czech Republic. It's a similar story for Jeff Beckley of the United States. He's 6-0 up against Craig Bauer of South Africa. So whitewash potential there as well. And Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, worth keeping an eye on him. As we were saying, he's shown some good form in recent months. Very established player as it is anyway, from Spain. Well, he's finding the going tough against another South African, Jason Theron, who's just won the 8th rack to level with FSR at 4 apiece. Billy Thorpe, who's played Mosconi for you in the past, Jeremy. 2-0, he leads Tom Emez.
Yeah, and I look for Billy. I mean, it's going to be a process for Billy, but I look for him to do some things this year. Super talented.
I mentioned earlier Juan Carlos Exposito. He has now finished that off against Kevin Lanoy. 9-6 win for the man from Spain. And Ralph Souquet heading for a really tight finish against Tim Jonkman of the Netherlands. 7-all in that one. Yeah. Nothing tight about this one though. Chris Melling firmly on top.
Yeah, the Netherlands, another country that just seems like produces a lot of solid players. Chris is going to get another nice shot on the 1. Making 2 balls on the break. Easy position on the 3. This doesn't look good for Petr. And I'll tell you, of course, could be 7-0 quickly, but just getting some time at the table for the man from the Czech Republic. You know, even if he goes on to lose this match, it looks apparent, but oh my, there you go.
Well, we were saying earlier, he's not been handed anything easy. He certainly has now. Just wonder, was it almost getting too easy for Melling and just lost a tiny bit of focus there?
Yeah, if he maybe had to work the cue ball a little more, probably addresses the shot with a little more concern. And winter break format, you never know. We haven't got to see Petr break the balls yet, but I'm sure he can handle that. Watch out, 9-ball. He's going to get by there. He's going to cue over the 9 a bit, but should be okay.
Mentioned he played for the Czech Republic in the World Cup of Pool last year. They actually beat Hungary in the first round and went really close to the quarterfinals. They played Slovakia, who had stunned the top seeds Austria in the first round. And Slovakia just got through 7-6, went on to get to the semi-finals. But that, Jeremy, is a really bad sign.
Yeah, a little bit of cueing, but you would have to say more, maybe not getting to shoot at many balls, but maybe a little nerves too. And that's, again, the slick table, the great conditions, the balls cut a little easier. And if you understand it, it makes a huge difference. Now, Chris will try to get into the pink 4 here, Michael. I think, anyways.
And to miss a ball from not great distance by that much, such a bad sign for Urban. And of course, that's going to make Melling even more relaxed. And that's showing him that even if he does slip up, as he did really badly there, he just wasn't punished for it. Takes a lot of pressure off.
He wanted to open that up a bit more, and now it's going to be a safety of some sort. He can't go off the left side of the 4. It's got to be off the right side running the cue ball, but very well struck though. I don't think he's too disappointed in the way he hit that 3-ball.
We were talking about Billy Thorpe earlier. 4-0 he now leads Tom Emez of Britain.
Yeah, and I'm watching Billy break the balls. He's looks like breaking them perfect. Should be 5-0 here soon. Yeah, and I'm not sure the play here. I think you have to hit the right side of his right side of the 4, coming off the side cushion and then the bottom cushion, and run the cue ball back up behind the purple. Just kind of let the 4 come across the table. Really not sure otherwise. This is where I don't really, you know, you're up 6-0. You could say to yourself, I can afford something loose, but that's not really the mentality. not the correct one. He's going to go for the kick shot. Surprising. This could really give Petr the starter he really needs. Might have made it as well. And Chris always comes with the amazing.
Yeah, backs up what you were saying earlier, the wonderful imagination that he shows. But not only that, the ability to execute those shots when he does pick them out.
Yeah, well, when you play games like English 8-ball and snooker and different things, it really opens the mind.
Dmitry Yungo, very good player from Switzerland who we've seen do well in some big events of late. 5-4 down, though, against Rico Dix of the Netherlands.
Yeah, Rico, who's resided now in London for probably 10 or 12 years, I would guess. And Rico is a solid player. He made, you know, not deep runs at the World Pool Championships years ago representing the Netherlands, but he definitely made the final 64 a few times, maybe the final 32. And how's the speed control here, Michael? Wedging him up on the brown 7.
Yeah, it's been pretty good throughout the match, that aspect of his game.
Okay, if he gets either side of the purple 5, should get a little separation or make it. Oh my.
Oh, and that sums up his day, doesn't it? Pulls out a good shot like that and then sees the cue ball race away into the side pocket.
Yeah, I've heard no complaints at all from the players, really appreciating the event here at the UK Open, of course, and the Copper Box Arena is about as good as it gets.
Yep, it's the first staging of this event. It's the opening day, and so far it's been a very good day for Chris Melling. He leads Petr Urban of the Czech Republic 7 racks to 0. There's someone else who's reached 7 is Wojciech Szewczyk of Poland. Just the sort of player you could see really take a big step forward this week. Have a really good run. 7-3, he leads Ross Cable. Ko-Ping Chung is also playing on one of the main tables this morning. 6-0 now, he leads against Dominic Clemens. Omar Al-Shaheen, we were talking about just a few minutes ago. He's going well, 7-4 up against Jani Sikkonen of Finland.
Ko-Ping Chung and Chris Melling trying to see who can win first. Right at the same scoreline, roughly.
7-0 then. 2 more racks needed for a whitewash.
And Chris has broken, gotten a shot at the 1 a lot, so we may not see much more of Petr Urban.
You were mentioning earlier the Dutch contingent, Jeremy. Well, one of the greatest of them all over the years, Niels Vijen, 4-time Mosconi Cup MVP. He's in the early stages of his match against Spencer Oliver, and he's leading 2-1. It's not gone ideally for Melling, though.
Yeah, big mistake with the cue ball there. Just overstruck the draw shot. And he's got to move the cue ball a little bit here, though. The 4 doesn't pass the 6.
As Melling tries to get to the hill here, we'll try to keep you up to date on all the big stories going on at the moment. Nicolas de Leon 6-1 up against Tony Burton. The American just 3 racks away from the next round.
And Nick de Leon from Tucson, Arizona. Just one of those players that it's only going to do him incredible things to keep playing these big events. Very talented. Made some noise at the World Pool Championships with some nice wins.
He did, and he was absolutely loving it. Every time I saw him that week, he seemed to have a big smile on his face. Very emotional character.
Great guy. Chris Melling to the heel with a pretty easy 9-ball.
Yeah, it's the third time he's run out from the break in this match. And now Petr Urban is staring a mild form of humiliation right in the face because he's 8-0 down and just one away from elimination. Ko Ping Chung seems to be one rack behind Melling all the way through his match over on the other main table. 7-0 now, he leads against Dominic Clemens.
You know, with 3 breaking runs, usually winner break format at 8-0, you'd figure Petr would have got on the board. But Chris has played some incredible kick shots, some really tidy safeties, and maybe nobody in the building can beat you faster.
Certainly not been a reflection at all of the sort of player Urban is. Yeah, he's played some bad shots along the way, but really he's just not had an opportunity to get a foothold, and even by the time he'd potted a ball, the match had all but slipped away.
Yeah, but you're going to pay attention this week that there's going to be some big leads that fall in this winter break format. The guys settle in, figure out the break, the speed.
If, as now seems inevitable, Melling gets through, could be an all-British clash for him in the next round against Tom Staveley, although he has to beat Ian McCormack of Ireland before that comes to pass. If Melling gets through that, it could then be Alex Kazakis in the round after that. Anyway, that's all some way off. Still business to be taken care of here.
And the ones caught the points, so Kubok got kicked a little bit. Unless the pink 4 has gotten in the way, which it may have gotten in the way of the cut shot, Michael. I was going to say we're going to see him go offensive again, but I think only a cross-corner bank is offered. And he's near the cushion with the cue ball, so he'd have to really elevate the cue to play the bank, I believe. Now maybe sizing that up. Now he's getting behind the ball to the pocket, so that tells you he is going to take on the cut. He has to move the cue ball maybe back into the purple. Maybe contacting the purple coming across is ideal. Yeah, I like that. Well, that was hit pretty well. Little thin here, but he's close enough to it. He can follow the ball or draw it, I believe, in hold position. May use the brown 7, we'll see.
Ralph Suke is through. He came through that close finish against Tim Jonkman of the Netherlands, 9-7, so he'll play Pranit Ramchandani of India in the next round. And the next round seems to be where Chris Melling is destined for, potentially in the next couple of minutes. Couldn't have asked any more of himself from this.
I'll just keep it simple here now, contacting the 8. A little longer shot on the 5, but like I said, doesn't need to do much with the cue ball. Yeah, Chris playing like he's got somewhere to be, Michael.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall at quite an early stage here, but Melling has been absolutely relentless. He has powered on 3 break and runs along the way, and a thoroughly dominant performance. Urban potted only a handful of balls. He'll have better days ahead. He's a better player than this match would ever have suggested to you. But Chris Melling is the winner against